Okay, so this last kind of part we're going to do of this chapter is now going to get into negatives. And that's the whole reason we're doing this, is because we did fractions and then we did negative numbers, and now we're going to do both of them together. Okay, and so we're going to do a couple notes, and then you're going to have just a lot of practice with some negative numbers. So first we have to learn whether something is negative or positive. So if I look at the first one, it says 25.2 feet below water level. So that's below. So that's a negative number. Okay. And the next one is 9 2/3 foot gain in elevation. So that's a positive number. I would like you to do the other ones here and decide if they're positive or negative numbers. All right, pause. You did it? Okay, tax is added on, so that's a positive. Below 0, this would be a negative. It withdraws taking something out, so it's a negative. Using is losing it, so it's gone, so it's a negative. A deposit is putting it in. And beating a record beating a run record by 3, so you're going this much less than the record. So it is a minus because you're beating it. All right, we did learn about absolute values. Like it says, recall absolute values is a distance from 0. So we're going to use the bars around the numbers. So what is the absolute value of a negative 2/7 is a positive. Remember, it makes numbers positive. It's the distance to 0. So if it's negative, it changes to positive. If it's positive, it stays. So this would be a positive. So go ahead and do these 3. Pause and do them. Okay, this is a positive 4.95. This is a positive 0.703. And this is a positive 8.2. I don't know why I wrote 0.82. All right, so now the comparing. Oh my gosh, the comparing. This is the stuff that's going to hit you as you get older. And I always draw these little number lines. Like now I can say you learned them in 6th grade because I didn't know when they learned them, but I knew they learned them. Okay, so I know 2 1/4, negative 2 1/4 is right here. And I know a negative 1 1/2 is right here. Okay, so remember, if it's to the right, it's bigger. So it's closer to 0. I would rather owe you $1.50 than 2 1/4. So $1.50 is a bigger number. Okay, same thing on the next one. 0.08 would be like right here. Negative 0.08 would be right there because it's very close to 0. 0.35 would be right here. So that means that this number is actually bigger. Okay, so to compare negative numbers, you have 2 options. You can write them with like fractions, so they have to have the same denominator. Okay, and that's what we did here on 15. Or decimals, you compare their place values. Okay, think about where the number would fall on the number line. This is what I've been saying. Think about it, where it would fall. The number that is closer to 0 is the larger number. The number to the right, those are my bigger numbers on a number line. All right, so I would like you to take a second and I would like you to work these 6. We're just going to do 6 of them here because I think that's enough. Okay, so if I think about a number line, here's 0. Here's a negative 1/9, negative 2/9, negative 3/9, negative 4/9. So the negative 1/9 is closer to 0. Okay, so if I think about a number line, here's 0. Here is, because it's kind of, I'm going to just jump, I guess. Instead of going to 0, let's go to a negative 1. And so then this would be a negative 1 1/8, a negative 1 2/8, a negative 1 3/8, a negative 1 4/8. Should have made a bigger number line. Negative 1 5/8, negative 1 6/8. Okay, well, isn't 6/8 3/4? So a negative 1 5/8 is closer. So that one is the bigger number. Okay. All right. On this next one, this place value, correct? So if you think about that, this is what you got to think about. Here's 0. Here's a -1. Here's a -2. Here's a -3. Negative 2.09 would be on this side of a negative 2.21. So now this would be bigger, okay, because it's more to the right. Same thing on the next one. This would be bigger because 14 is going to be closer to 0, -14, than a -15. All right, so on the next one, you have a couple of options here, but you know that 1/3 is 0.3 repeating, right? So that's really like 0.33333. So basically that's, whoa, back off, it's negative. I forgot we were doing that, my bad. So if you need to look at the number line, here's a -2, here's a -2.1, -2.2, -2.3. -2.3 is going to be here. -2.3 repeating is going to be there. So -2.3 is more to the right. So it's actually, when you're negative, it's the smaller number that's bigger, because the smaller number, right, if you take out the decimal, the smaller number. So like if I had a -3 and a -100, a -3 is way closer to 0. So that's the bigger number. Okay, so you got to think about it that way. So when you're looking at negative numbers, they're backwards. So on the next one, if I do 7 divided by 25, so 25 divided by 7, so 2. Bring down the 0. That would be a -0.28. Oh, they're equal to each other, correct? Okay, so if you order them from least to greatest, it's just like we did before, but now it's backwards. Okay, so on this first one, I'm going to write them all with 30s. So times by 5, times by 6, times by 2. Okay, so now let's think about this. -4 is closer to 0, so 2, so that's the biggest. I thought it was greatest to least. So my smallest is the one farthest from 0, which is this one is my smallest, so that's a -1/5. And then it would be a -1/6, and then a -2/15. So the closer it is to 0, the closer it is to 0, the bigger the number. So let's take a look at this next one, because I could do this. We were working on this. Isn't this 1, 1, 1? Okay. So the one that's closest to 0 is going to be the one that is the smallest number, which is this one. So that's the biggest. Okay. And the one that's farthest away from 0 is going to be the biggest number, actually. So this is the smallest. So I'd have a -4.2. That's the smallest. And a -4 1/9. Okay. And then the last one is -4.08. All right. I would like you to try to order these two. Just try to order them. All right. If you divide a -3/7 out, and I'm not going to do that, but I know it's 0.428, and this one is -0.5, and this one is, we did this one, -1.2. So the one that is the smallest is the one that's farthest from 0, which would be this number. So -1 1/5 is the smallest, and then a -0.5, and then a -3/7. That is the order. Okay. And then on this last one, I know 2/5 is 3.4. And I can divide 3/8 out, and you end up getting a -3.375, and then a -3.04. Okay, the one that is the farthest from 0 is the smallest, and that's that one because it's the biggest number. So it's -3 2/5. And then it would be -3 3/8, and then a -3.04. Okay, that's smallest to biggest.